Quinn. In our town, it really isn't shocking to see a fight go down. I've seen kids with house keys tucked between their knuckles throwing punches at each other. I've seen 10 guys from our school chasing 4 dudes from another school down a block, and a stranger step into the melee with a bat to protect the guys who were outnumbered. And Gutso, Dwyer, and I spent most of Jill's party telling ourselves we were tough as balls and that what happened outside Jerry's was nothing. It wasn't on our minds, we kept telling each other. No big deal. MBD, Dwyer wrote in beer on the wooden slats of the back porch with a nozzle from the keg. In fact, we spent most of the party on that back porch, ignoring everyone else. Gutso never said a word to Jill for me, and through the window, I saw English moving through the room like the friggin' king he is, getting up close to girls and making them laugh and giggle. I was sure if he found Jill, it'd be the same. I was out there in the darkness of the back porch, looking in through the window to the bright kitchen, like I was watching the whole damn party unfold on TV. I gave Gutso my flask at some point, and when I eventually got it back, it was empty, but I didn't bug him about it. Because even though what happened at Jerry's was MBD, it was really all we talked about that night. My brother has to deal with that shit every day, Gutso kept saying. And he just does it. No complaints. He's amazing. But what had always amazed me most about Gutso's brother Paul was how he had made time for me. I was 10 when my father died, and it was Paul who'd taken me down to Gooch to practice. Gooch was the neighborhood park, but Paul'd get us down there so early we'd have the whole court to ourselves. He showed me how to do the spider drill, how to dribble with 2 balls, how to tuck my elbows when I shot. But the man I'd watched grind a kid into the sidewalk, I don't know, was like someone else. Someone I couldn't place, some hulking animal stalking the shadows of my mind all night. I could hear his voice, and yet it wasn't him. I could see his face, and yet it wasn't him. Dwyer and Gutso drank much more than I did, and they stood around the keg shouting out the lyrics of all the hip-hop songs blasting from the living room inside. Earlier that day, I'd imagined myself dancing with Jill, hands in the air and then down along her back to her hips as she draped hers around my neck. But I spent most of the night still stuck on that sidewalk outside Jerry's, my heart pumping fiercely in my throat. And when someone at Jill's yelled that the cops had arrived, I almost thought I'd call them there with my mind. I slept terribly, but no matter how much or how little I sleep, I begin almost every day the same way. Ma's voice in my head, telling me what I needed to do, what I needed to think about, how I needed to act. But on mornings like this one, or if Coach Carney was making us do suicides up and down the court for 15 minutes, or when Dwyer dropped another 5-pounder on either side of the bar on my last rep in the weight room, it was Dad's voice in my head, or at least what I thought was his voice. I hadn't heard it in so long, I couldn't even tell if it was his or if I was making it up. Whatever it was, it got me to where I needed to get. Push. If you don't, someone else will. Lift. If you don't, someone else will. Faster, 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 faster. I was in the living room, my feet tucked under the lip of the couch, firing through a set of 50 crunches, when I heard Ma's actual sleepy voice drift up and over the room. Don't kill yourself, she said. I've been so into my push-ups and sit-ups and all that, I hadn't even heard her come home. Where's the mat? She continued. I kept at it in my head. Push 25, 2, 3. Push 26, 2, 3. Push. Ma sighed. Boys, she said. I heard her slough into the kitchen and open the fridge. I finished my set, sprang to my feet, and felt the room spin. Black dots popped across my vision, and before I passed out, I dropped to the couch and sat there catching my breath. Water? Ma asked from the kitchen. Yes, I whisper shouted, but she was already on her way to give it to me. Ma sat down next to me and put her head on my shoulder. She was so much smaller than me now, and I liked the way she sometimes leaned into me or hugged me, like she was excited, not in a weird way, but with something I think might have been pride. She'd already kicked off her shoes, and she'd already changed into one of the 3 t-shirts she always wore around the house. I drank my water in 2 long gulps. Honey, you stink, Ma said, pulling away from me. Sorry. Gotta do my workouts, though, every morning. She rolled to the other side of the couch. Get off! You're going to make the cushions stink. Ma, I'm serious. She pushed my shoulder and laughed, and I rolled onto the floor. Come on, she continued. You'll ruin the rug. She leaned back on the arm of the couch and crossed one leg over the other. She could have fallen asleep right there. The bags under her eyes were prunes. Loose strands of hair sprang from her head like she'd pulled a wool hat off, and the static electricity still hung in the air around her. But despite her exhaustion, somehow she still always found a smile for me. What's the matter with you? She said, yawning. You look strange. Nothing, I said. She rubbed her face and squinted at me, and I knew her mind was working to put it all together, but she was so tired. I can trust you, right? She asked, still slouched in the corner of the couch. You'd tell me if something was the matter. Of course, I said quickly, even though there was a hell of a lot on my mind. But I didn't feel like telling her about any of it. I'm just going to rinse off, I said. It was going to be a 2-shower day. Then I got to hit the court. Coach is picking the starters this week. You'll make it, she said, as if fighting for a starting spot was MBD, as if it had just come to me because I wanted it, not because I had to fight for it. I left Ma slumped against the armrest and went straight to the bathroom. I got the water running hot first, then switched it to cold just to fire up the senses and wake up. I still felt a little groggy from last night, and I was pissed at myself because after my workout, I wanted to get right to the court. I thought I had a real shot at being a starter. But next week was too important to coast through. I had to hit more three-pointers when we went around the world. I had to have the higher free throw percentage. English was so good, he didn't have to give up the ball. So if he did, I had to make sure he felt more comfortable giving me the ball. And that meant working harder to get open and, more importantly, making the shot when I got the ball, because the scouts were coming. Of course, the stands were going to be filled, but a few of those seats at every game were the seats we were all playing for. Full ride to Michigan State, full ride to UNC. My dad had college paid for because he'd gone through ROTC at City College, but I had to do even better. Butler, Notre Dame, Villanova, Wisconsin, Arizona, Duke. St. Springfield's son needed to go full ride, too. Scouts paved the way, and I had to show them who I was. I had to be a starter. And as I was trying to psych myself up for a day of drills down at Gooch, I stepped out of the bathroom, wrapped only in a towel, holding my stank-ass clothes in a wad, and nearly ran right into Ma. She held my jeans in one hand and my flask in the other. She jutted her chin at me. Quinn Marshall Collins, you tell me the truth this minute, and you start from the very beginning. She pinched her lips tight. Is this how you want the world to know you? Some kind of derelict who doesn't give a damn about his actions? I stuttered. It was the strangest thing. I'd never been caught before. It was like there was regular me, the one Ma smiled at and loved, the one I'd always been, and then this new guy, the one shivering in the hallway outside the bathroom, standing in his towel, wondering why Ma had gone looking through my room while I was in the shower. Can I just get dressed? Ma sniffed. You have 30 seconds. Then she turned and marched to the kitchen. I broke the world's record for throwing on sweats and busting back to the kitchen. She sat on one side of the little formica table, steam from her mug of tea rising up to her face as she stared out the window to the Barrows house next door. The flask lay askew beside the mug. She ran her hand over her eyes and then up over her forehead like a visor. You know, she said slowly, this stuff can kill you. I know you don't think so, but it can. Ma, I said, sitting in the chair across from her. Listen, she interrupted. When you act like this, when you sit around breaking the law, thinking it is okay, you embarrass me. You embarrass your brother, and you embarrass yourself. You have more important things to worry about, young man. The flask sat on the table between us, and she picked it up. She waved it gently. This is going in the garbage. Okay? Then I had to add, flat out lying. It was Guzzo's idea. But you took it from our house. I just checked. She'd never done that before. Plus, I only took a flask full after she'd emptied a glass or two from the bottle, and there was always a new bottle to replace the old one. And even if it was, she waved the flask again. Guzzo drank nearly the whole thing. Guzzo drank the alcohol. It was Guzzo's idea. You make it sound like you weren't there, Quinn, but you were. You were there. Maybe it was the alcohol still in my blood, but the way she said it, I was there in the night. That hollowed out, gutted feeling making me nervous and stupider than usual, like I couldn't find the simplest words. I saw Paul. I'm sorry. Not good enough. I'm sorry I stole the bourbon. I'm sorry I drank it with Guzzo and Dwyer. You talk about wanting to be somebody. You talk about basketball. You talk about making your family proud, but then you act like this? What do you think people are going to think of you now? Jesus, Ma, I said, it's not that big a deal. It was only one night. It won't happen again. She tapped the flask with her finger. Remember you said that it was only this one time. Don't let it happen again. And don't Jesus Mom me. I looked out the window. I'm just saying that I know it was dumb and I'm sorry. I didn't even have that much to drink, I swear. It's not about that, Quinn. Ma leaned forward and grabbed my hands. She waited until I stopped looking out the window and looked at her. It's about how the world looks at you, and when they do, who do you want them to see? What kind of a person do you want to be? Who do you think you are? You're the one your brother looks up to. You're a senior, Quinn. This is the year everyone looks to see what kind of man you want to become. I pulled my lips tight against my teeth to try to keep calm and not tear up like a baby. I didn't want to be a baby. I didn't want to be a jerk off. I'm doing the best I can here, Ma continued. I'm on my own, honey, and I'm doing the best I can to help you, but I need your help to help your brother. She sipped her tea and watched me. I sat there like a mute because I didn't know what to say. I felt like an idiot. She sighed. I was going to ask you, but now I'm just telling you. Pick up Willie from his game today. The Cambies are bringing him. In fact, go see your brother's game. It means more to him if you're there than me anyway. So go see his game. She reached for her purse that hung on the back of her chair and pulled a few bills from her wallet. He looks up to you. Spend some time with him. Take him out for pizza after. Once basketball starts, we'll never see you. Take him out for lunch. So I did what I was told. And I put on some clean jeans and my light hoodie and took the bus over to the east side for Willie's game. Tough Will, who was known to sit down in the middle of his own soccer game, right there on the field, until his coach gave up and called in the sub. Tough Will spent most of his game sitting on the sidelines eating orange slices. When I got there, both teams were already warming up on either end of the field. I'd played soccer before I was in high school and loved it. For Tough Will, it was another story. It was only the warm-ups, and I could see him dragging his feet, not chasing anything or anyone anywhere, just standing around and waiting for someone to pass him the ball. Get in there, man, I shouted. Will! Will! Get in there, man! He looked over at me and waved, totally oblivious to the rest of the players and balls around him. Still, I guess I inspired him because he turned and chased down a red and white ball and dribbled it a bit before taking a shot on net. It went wide left, but at least he ran after the ball. My phone started blowing up with texts, but Regina Canby had set up a folding chair beside a cooler, and she was waving me over, so I had to ignore the text because I sure as hell couldn't ignore her. She sat with a few other moms, and the dads who'd come to the game stood around in a circle a little ways behind them, under the boughs of the one large oak tree that gave this park its name. I chatted with Mrs. Canby at first, but then the game began, and I started cheering Willie and his team on, using that as an excuse to pull away as if I wanted to walk down the sidelines and see the action more clearly because my phone kept buzzing and buzzing in my pocket, and I wanted to see what was going on. Uzo had texted "What's up" 10 times. Saturday, 12:53 p.m. to Guzzo. How's your head? Saturday, 12:53 p.m. from Guzzo. Fucking awful. Saturday, 12:54 p.m. to Guzzo. Bananas and Gatorade, man. Saturday, 12:54 p.m. from Guzzo. I'm puking water if I drink it. Saturday, 12:55 p.m. to Guzzo. Damn, you busted? Saturday, 12:55 p.m. from Guzzo. No. Saturday, 12:55 p.m. to Guzzo. Fuck, I am, and I'm not even hungover. Saturday, 12:57 p.m. from Guzzo. It's a shit show here. Saturday, 12:57 p.m. to Guzzo. What? Saturday, 12:58 p.m. from Guzzo. Paul's home is a big deal. Saturday, 12:58 p.m. to Guzzo. Is it about yesterday? At Jerry's? Saturday, 12:59 p.m. from Guzzo. I don't know. Yeah. Saturday, 1 p.m. to Guzzo. Damn. Saturday, 1:02 p.m. from Guzzo. I guess we are having a barbecue tomorrow. Saturday, 1:02 p.m. to Guzzo. What? Saturday, 1:03 p.m. from Guzzo. Yep, see you then. Tell your mom to bring that marshmallow pie. Saturday, 1:03 p.m. to Guzzo. She has to work, I think. Saturday, 1:04 p.m. from Guzzo. Nope, I already know she's coming. I hesitated and he wrote again. Saturday, 1:06 p.m. from Guzzo. Everybody coming. Gotta bust. See you tomorrow. So something had to be up because the Galuzzo family never had people over. Or rather, they never invited people over. There were so many people coming and going from the house that it always seemed like a party, but they never officially organized anything. I tried him a few more times, but he didn't text back, so I gave up. I'd see him at the barbecue anyway, because of course I'd go. I always went, and wound up wolfing down Paul's famous burgers. But now I saw that face, Paul's, burning, a blood-red mask of rage. He'd been so focused on kicking the shit out of that guy. I'd seen him. Had he seen me? What if he had? I never felt nervous around Paul, and suddenly just thinking about him made me sweat. As I was going through all this, I tried to watch the game, but it was slow as all hell, and Will's team was terrible. Still, Will was playing left back, and he was actually running around and chasing the ball. Near the end of the first half, one of the players on the other team got around a couple of guys just over midfield and seemed like he had a clean break for a shot, but Will came out of nowhere and nailed a sweet slide tackle. The parents on the other side of the field started screaming like crazy, but Will's tackle had been legal, at least as I could see it. And that's what the referees thought too. And so when the first half ended, Will was the momentary hero, keeping the game more respectable because his team was only down 1-0. I found him and slapped him 5 over the heads of a few teammates in the huddle with his coach, and then I backed off. People always felt bad for me at games because of Dad. And Ma was always working, but I liked being on my own. I liked figuring out what I had to do and doing it. No one seemed to get that, and I didn't want to crowd Will either, so I let him be. His coach was thrilled and put him back in for the second half. Guzzo still didn't text back, and I went back and forth with Dwyer a few times, but eventually I put the phone away because it really was more fun to check out the game, and check out Will, especially. This might sound dumb to some people, but it's actually pretty cool having a little brother. I mean, he was a pain in the ass. And that I was here and not practicing over a gooch pissed me off. But watching him smash into the guys on the other team, watching the way he shook off his own pain, made me realize that I did the same thing. Twirl my fist like I was revving myself up. He had the same crooked smile. And once, when there was a pause in the action and he was close to me on the sidelines and he was hunched over with his hands on his knees, he looked over at me and nodded, and I knew he was saying thank you. Not because I'd shown up to watch him, but because I had shown up to watch him, he was playing harder and he was loving it. And after the game, I didn't mind taking Tough Will over to Mother's Pizza. On the bus back to the West Side, he kept asking me about the game and what his team could have done better. Scored a goal, I said. That would have helped. He rolled his eyes. Yeah, I know, but how? Your striker, he couldn't run. That was his problem. And when he had a shot, he hesitated. Can't hesitate. Like you, man, you were awesome today. I shook his shoulder and felt bad it was the only game I'd made it to all season. I wanted to be the guy who showed up, not the one who didn't. When we got to Mother's, it was slammed, like always. Mother sits on a corner, and the front door faces Spring Street, and the to go window faces 20th Street. And while I usually just hit the to go window, especially when I swung by at night, the line was jammed inside and outside. So I stuck Willie on the end of one of the two picnic tables and went inside to see if it moved any faster. It still took a while. And while I waited, I had to try to look everywhere else around the room except the one spot where I felt those eyes always watching me. That's why I preferred the to go window. I couldn't see those eyes blazing into me. Those eyes, my dad's eyes. In the photo the pizza guys had up on the wall, two guys in greasy t-shirts with their arms up around my dad's shoulders. Dad, a pillar of stone, dressed like usual in his Class A blues. The rest of the photos were of people in the pizza shop, but not the one with Dad. He'd gotten the guys to make pizza for the soup kitchen at St. Mary's. His photo looked down on me. When I was finally up near the front, I felt a tug at my arm. I was about to turn back to Willie to tell him that he might have lost our seats, but it wasn't Willie at my arm. It was Jill. She pulled close to me so the people behind us couldn't hear. "Hey, Quinn, you mind getting an extra slice?" she asked. Her hair fell in two blonde brown curtains around her face, and I could smell her shampoo as she looked up at me conspiratorially. And when a girl looks at you like that, all you can say is, "Whatever you want. I'll do anything for you. Is there anything else you want?" "Yeah," I somehow managed to say instead. "Yeah, you mind?" She grinned. "No, yeah, no." I laughed like a moron. The thing about slices at Mother's is that they are huge, so she stuck around to help carry it all outside. She offered some money, but I waved her off because I had it good at Mother's. I grabbed us all Cokes too, because the guys at Mother's always gave St. Springfield's son a major discount. And yeah, well, I was the kind of guy who just kept taking those free Cokes, no questions asked, like I actually deserved them or something. "How are you planning on carrying this all out there on your own anyway?" she asked. I had two giant slices and two Cokes by the necks of the bottles. She had two slices and a Coke. "Guess I was just waiting for you," I said. She frowned, but in a cute way, like it was really a smile. "Oh, yeah, I bet you were." Willie had managed to save two seats, but when he saw us, he got up and offered Jill his. "Please," he said. She tried to protest, but he wouldn't let her. He stood at the end of the picnic table and glanced back and forth at us while he shoved pizza into his face. "One of us is what you'd call a gentleman," he informed us. "He's hilarious," Jill said to me. Now, what kind of world did I live in where my 12-year-old brother was the cooler flirt than me? "Yeah," I said. "I'm supposed to be his role model, but maybe it's the other way around." "Nah," she said. "I bet he learned all this from someone. But this someone needs to sit down today, huh? I'm old and broken. He's got his whole life ahead of him." "Yeah," Jill said. "And you're hungover, right?" "I knew it!" Willie yelped. "I knew you were going to a party last night." "Oops," Jill said. I pointed at Willie. "Between us. Got me?" "Oh, yeah," Willie said. "Until I need the ammo." "Willie?" "Will, please." Jill laughed. She put her hand on Willie's wrist, and his face changed. His whole body probably blushed as deep red as his face. He gave her the dopiest smile. Had I looked like that when she'd asked me to get her a slice? Jesus. But Jill didn't mind. "Will," she said, "don't get him in trouble because then it will be my fault and he'll never speak to me again." I stared at Will and he knew exactly what I was saying with my eyebrows. "Don't fuck this up, dude." "Whatever," Willie said. "I'm only kidding." Willie and I shared the extra slice as Jill and I talked about the party. I tried to get a sense of whether or not she and English had hooked up, but I wasn't going to ask outright because it really was none of my damn business. She was being super flirty, but not in the way I wanted her to mean it. This had happened before. Sometimes I got the feeling she thought of me more as a brother. But no dude wants to be thought of as a brother when he is sitting across from a girl who's not his sister and who makes his stomach flip when she says his name. While we were talking, though, things were getting a little heated over by the corner. A couple of guys had walked up to two other guys in line and started barking. They kept at it to the point where the rest of us outside couldn't even hear ourselves. People started yelling around them, and when one of the guys pushed one of the guys in line, they broke into punches. I jumped up and stuffed Willie into the seat behind me. People yanked out their phones calling the cops, but somebody must have called the cops already because the berry lights flashed down the block. The guys in the fight tried to swing a few more punches, but people in the crowd had pulled them apart and locked them in armholds. One cop car pulled up and then another, and everything happened so quickly we all just stood around watching like dumb idiots until the cops had grabbed the four guys who'd been fighting, pinned them to the hoods of the two cars, and cuffed them. I, of course, was back at the night before, where I'd seen Paul arrest the kid outside Jerry's. But this was different. Another cop car pulled up and then another. Then all eight cops started asking the crowd to disperse, only holding a few people back to ask questions. This kind of thing happened all the time at Mother's. It sat right between neighborhoods, and kids from one block might beef with kids from another or some other shit. And while I tried to stay out of it, it was impossible not to watch it explode right in front of you. The crowd outside Mother's was white, black, Latino, Asian, just like Springfield. The four guys being cuffed were white. The cops, almost all of them were white, but two of them were black. It was impossible not to think about this as Paul slamming that black kid into the sidewalk the night before replayed in my mind. It wasn't like watching one of my brother's video games or a movie. You hear bone. You see real blood, and you taste the rust of it, and it makes you sick. I broke into a sweat like I might puke. I turned to Willie and Jill. Should we get out of here? More people began to shout at the cops from the crowd. I was done with this. We'll walk you home, I told Jill. We busted back down the street away from the scene and took the long way around the neighborhood to Jill's house. I could tell Jill was as distracted as I was, as if we both had private conversations going on in the back of our minds, and we used Willie sandwiched between us as the focal point of conversation. But when we got to her house, she said over Willie's head, There's a barbecue at my cousin's tomorrow. You must be going. Yeah, I said. Weird, right? A sudden party? She looked at me, and I realized we might not have been having private conversations in our minds the whole way home. They might have been the same one. Yeah, I said. I don't know, but I think I have an idea what this is about. Me too, she said. As she jogged up her front steps, something ugly and awful was forming in my mind, but I couldn't quite find the right words for it. Or I didn't want to. I wasn't sure.